Hey guys, it's Mountain Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Slide. That's right, this old thing. This is a sweet deck. It's actually not even the first cycling deck to be created. There was another one uh, in Saga Block based around Fluctuator, but we're a little bit more fair this time. Although maybe there could be, it looks like there probably is some sort of Fluctuator based deck in here, I'd imagine, in Premodern. But today we're going to be looking at the Lightning Rift Astral Slide deck based upon the old Type 2 deck, the red-white version, which is pretty sweet. So it's, like I said, based around the cycling mechanic, first seen in Urza's block, and then also brought back in Onslaught block. And it's sweet because, well, all of your cards cycle, so you can pretty much find more or less whatever you need whenever you need it. So that's kind of the nice thing, especially like your lands have cycling. So if you draw too many lands, you can cycle those, or if you don't have enough lands, you can play cycling lands as lands, of course. That's pretty nice. So you got a lot of lands, but you don't have the drawback of having a lot of lands, right? Because you can cycle them literally, uh, and so it allows you to run a lot of removal and things like that would normally be like dead in a lot of matchups. And what you'll end up doing is you'll just cycle them out. Or you'll just sideboard out like whatever cards you need in, but you'll keep in most of your cycling cards, just because you need them to function, obviously, and they're never dead. So that's pretty sweet. Um, and basically, the strategy is to kill everything. You want to just kill everything, and then you want to kill them. You want to get them with your Lightning Rift. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's not a super complicated deck. Most board control decks tend to be fairly simple. I think they don't have a ton of reactive cards, uh, although this deck can do a little bit of that. But it's mostly fairly pretty binary. Pretty simple flow chart. They got a creature, cycle a card and kill it. Or exile it with the slide, that kind of thing. Pretty easy. So this is what it looks like. It's very uh, pretty sweet deck list. I based it off of one that I saw at the European Championships for Premodern. It was from last year. This deck's very similar to it. Changed up the sideboard a little bit, um, and most of the main decks mostly the same. But again, you're not getting a ton of variance of these kind of decks, mostly just because there are some other good cycling cards, but most of them are a little bit weaker. Now there is one, was it called Radiance Judgment? I think it's the white, two colorless, and it exiles a creature with power 4 greater or something, or is it destroy? I can't quite remember. And then it cycles for 2. I mean, that's an okay card. That could see play in here somewhere, I'd imagine. But yeah, a lot of them are just kind of like, a little too overcosted, a little too expensive. But these are like basically Spark Spray and Renewed Faith, Eternal Dragon, a couple of Slice and Dice, certainly at least a couple Degree of Justice. Obviously, all 8 of the cycling lands. I mean, after that, like you only need a few more cycling cards. So yeah, this is pretty much a lot of it's set in stone. Or something like Solar Blast is okay too. That could even go with the Dome. I could see playing 1 or 2 Solar Blast or something like that. Um, but yeah, mostly won't change the strategy of the deck, which is just a typical board control deck, and just killing stuff and sliding stuff and exiling things, and you can do all sorts of tricks with Astral Slide. You can slide their stuff out at uh, end of your turn, and they don't, because it's a trigger. It comes not until end of turn, but it's like at end of turn. So you can do all sorts of tricks with that. You can blank removal, of course, with if they want to sword your Eternal Dragon, you can cycle and then slide it out, and then it comes back. You can attack with your Eternal Dragon or Exalted Angel, and then after combat, in the next main phase, just slide it out and it comes back. So all sorts of things you can do with that. And of course, Lightning Rift. Every time you cycle, pay mana and kill something, or deal them 2 damage, which is pretty sweet. Sideboard is basically just typical wish board. Sometimes you'll be siding out your wishes, sometimes not. But for the most part, probably not going to be siding too much stuff in. Like if you need to side in the disenchants, you might side in remove like a Starstorm and Exalted Angel or something, or Starstorm and a Slice and Dice or whatever to bring in the 2 disenchants. Like you'll keep all the Burning Wishes in, so you'll be able to access like the Meltdown or the Cleansing Meditation. And Cleansing Meditation obviously is great because it's great against a lot of the other board control decks. A lot of them are based off enchantments, so it kills all their stuff and brings yours back. Or also a lot of the board control decks are based on artifacts too, so Meltdown deals with those. Meltdown doesn't really, I mean, it seems like there's not a ton of artifact based decks, so it's good to have at least one in the sideboard. But I haven't seen very many Tinker decks around or any of the Wildfire decks and stuff. But it is at least worth having one copy to wish for. So like I said, pretty simple, just a typical board control deck. You want to basically just kill as much as you can and then beat down with a big creature. And obviously the games are better if you start with like your slide and rift and stuff. But if you don't, it's not a big deal because you usually find them pretty quickly cycling through your deck, literally. And you're always got a lot of answers to stuff. So especially like if you don't find your, your slide or rift, you can always, you'll probably find your burning wish, and then the burning wish for like whatever answer that you need, like another wrath or something, or another cycling card, or I mean all sorts of stuff. So there's a lot you can do there, which is pretty sweet. Unfortunately, the deck is like kind of set in stone for most part. Like there's so many cards that you just need to play because you need a certain, a critical mass of cycling cards. And we're already using most of the best ones for the most part. Like I said, there are a couple other choices, but not a lot really to go there. But like you do, again, you can. I mean, how many of the cards in deck? It's about like 25 or more. Gosh, there's a lot that are basically cycle, and draw a card. So I mean, you have a ton of cards that let you draw and filter through cards that are not as good in whatever part of the game, that kind of stuff. So that's pretty nice, pretty nice. And so it makes it easy to find your sideboard cards and all sorts of good stuff like that. So that's kind of nice. Oh, also I forgot, I don't think I mentioned the Starstorm. That one's sweet. That's I guess it's just again another kind of a pet card, but again it cycles for 3 if you don't need it. And being an instant speed sweeper is pretty unexpected, although maybe not as much from this deck because it's a cycling card. But so that's nice. So you can catch people off guard and just wipe their board, which is pretty nice. Pretty nice. So it answers things like ball lightning really well, and all sorts of other haste stuff, which is sweet. Pretty sweet. Kind of the problem with the deck is that it's really mana hungry. So if there's any sort of mana denial stuff, that can like catch you off guard. I mean, normally you'll be able to cycle your way into a bunch more lands and stuff like that. But yeah, you gotta be careful for that. Stuff like Armageddon or even like Flash Fires with some draws would be pretty bad. Not very good for you because the deck is a bit slow. But it can put a game away pretty quickly once you get a Lightning Rift or 2 in play, and you just start cycling and killing stuff and dealing damage to them, and you can kill a little bit faster than you would think for a dirtily red-white deck. It doesn't do very well without its namesake enchantments, Lightning Rift and Astral Slide, but it's not that big of a deal. You can, again, like I said, you can cycle for more copies, things like that. So it's not a big problem, but you do gotta watch out for stuff like Pernicious Deed and Nathaniel's Disc and all sorts of other enchantment removal. So you gotta be careful of that a little bit. But again, there's not much you can do other than maybe like if you expect it not to play all your enchantments out. And the nice thing is though that it is slow, but it is really resilient to removal. Because again, Sly can protect your guys late game, and it's also you can bring back Eternal Dragon basically as much as you want, and any removal that, like Plow, that doesn't, that makes it get exiled, stuff like that, you can just slide it out, bring it back, and everything else, you can just return it from your graveyard to your hand with its abilities, so that's really nice. So you don't really have to worry too much about removal, not a big deal, only a minor speed bump. Yeah, and so against the other blue decks, which I think are more of a problem than, say, like the red decks, because like the red decks, you already, most of these decks, you're set up pretty well to deal with them. You get Spear of Lot post board, and you got all your wishes into all of your mass removal and slice and dice and Wrath of Gods and this and that and the other. So not a big deal, not a big deal. So that's nice. What else? Yeah, that's pretty good. So the blue decks you want to play like a lot of Red Elemental Blast to be able to deal with like their card drawing stuff to stop that, and what other nasty stuff they might have in mind. REB is pretty good. Again, you can play something like Boil or Ruination or whatever, which is good. It's a good card. I'm not sure this the correct split, but any of those cards is probably fine. I like REB because it's cheaper and it lets you still do other stuff, cycle and stuff. But obviously, Boil's a bit bigger impact. Maybe a mix would be good, like 1 Boil and 3 REBs or something like that. Like I said, Ruination's good too against if it's like more like 2 or 3 color decks or land still, which will have a bunch of non-basics and stuff. That could be good there too. Just sort of depends. Sort of depends. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, pretty simple deck to play, not too crazy, pretty straightforward, and it's kind of a little bit different because you can draw a bunch of cards, and all the cycling stuff is pretty fun. You get to see a bunch of stuff, and well, drawing cards. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? I love drawing cards. That's pretty sweet, and blinking stuff out all the time, sliding it in and out. That's cool. I like it. So yeah, it's great. I mean, shoot, there's not much else to say than that. So thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and have a great day.